A struggling inventor laughed when a homeless girl offered him half a sandwich in exchange for his worthless patent. But 48 hours later, the courtroom erupted and his life changed forever. This is the story of how one act of desperation led to a battle over an idea that would redefine them both. Before we begin, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what happens next. The leftover deal. The rain fell in heavy sheets over Chicago, turning the sidewalks into shallow rivers. Neon signs flickered weakly against the storm, their reflections smeared across the wet pavement. Inside Marty's diner, the air smelled of burnt coffee and old grease. The place was nearly empty, just a truck nurse in the corner and a man hunched over a laptop at the far booth, his fingers gripping his temples like he was trying to keep his thoughts from spilling out. Jason Lowe, 32, hadn't slept in 2 days. His dark circles rivaled the shadows under the diner's flickering fluorescence. In front of him lay the corpse of his ambition. A stack of rejection letters from the USPTO, each one stamped with the same soul-crushing verdict. Patent denied. His solar-powered water purifier, the project he'd poured 3 years and every last dime into, was officially deemed unmarketable and lacking innovation. He exhaled sharply, flipping open his notebook to the sketches that had once felt revolutionary. Now they just looked naive. "Last call for food, hon," the waitress said, refilling his coffee for the 4th time. Her tone was sympathetic, but Jason barely registered it. He patted his pockets out of habit, already knowing the answer. Empty. Again. The bell above the door jingled, letting in a gust of wind and rain. A girl stumbled in, soaked to the bone. She couldn't have been older than 24, her hoodie clinging to her like a second skin. The diner's patrons barely glanced up. Homeless kids were as common as potholes in this part of the city. But then she slid into the booth across from Jason. He blinked. This seat's taken." The girl, Lucy Mara, ignored him. She pulled a half-wrapped turkey sandwich from her pocket and set it on the table between them. The bread was soggy from the rain, but Jason's stomach growled anyway. "Trade you," she said. Jason frowned. "For what?" Lucy's eyes flicked to his notebook. "That." He barked out a laugh. "That patent's garbage. Even the government thinks so." She didn't flinch. "Then you won't miss it." Jason studied her. Up close, she wasn't just tired. She was hungry. Not the kind of hunger that could be fixed with diner meal, but the kind that gnawed at a person from the inside out. The kind he recognized. Still, he smirked. "What do you want with a dead-end design?" Lucy leaned forward, her voice low. "You look like a guy who's about to give up. I'm offering you a sandwich. Worst case, you get one last meal before you quit." Something in her tone made him pause. Not pity, challenge. Jason hesitated. Then, with a scoff, he shoved the notebook toward her. "Fine. Enjoy the trash." Lucy snatched it up, already flipping to the pages with an intensity that surprised him. She barely touched the sandwich, her fingers instead tracing the schematics, pausing at the margins where Jason had scribbled equations. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows and the scratch of Lucy's pen as she started writing, correcting his calculations. Jason's chest tightened. Your heat dispersion model's wrong," she muttered, not looking up. "You're losing efficiency here, and here." She circled 3 spots, then scrawled a new formula beside them. Jason's breath caught. He'd seen that equation before, in grad school papers, the kind written by people way out of his league. "Who the hell are you?" he whispered. Lucy finally took a bite of the sandwich, chewing slowly. When she spoke, her voice was quiet but sharp. Someone who knows what it's like to lose everything. She tapped the notebook. "This isn't garbage. It's just unfinished." Then she stood, tucking the notebook under her arm. "Hey!" Jason reached out, but she was already walking away. The bell jingled again as the door swung shut behind her. Jason stared at the half-eaten sandwich left on the table. His stomach twisted, but not from hunger. What just happened? Outside, the rain kept falling. Somewhere in the city, Lucy Mara disappeared into the storm, with his future in her hands. The coffee shop revelation. The next morning, Jason woke with a stiff neck and the sour taste of regret in his mouth. He had fallen asleep at the diner booth, his face pressed against the cold Formica table. The waitress shook him awake just before dawn, her expression a mix of pity and irritation. "You can't stay here, Han," she said, not unkindly. Jason rubbed his eyes. The events of last night rushing back. Lucy, the sandwich, his notebook vanishing into the rain. He had no way to contact her, no idea where she'd gone. For all he knew, she'd tossed his designs into the first dumpster she passed. But something about the way she'd studied those pages, the precision in her corrections, gnawed at him. He stepped out into the gray morning light, the city still damp from the storm. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Another email from the bank. Overdraft fees. He deleted it without reading. 3 blocks away, tucked between a pawn shop and a laundromat, was a grind, a coffee shop where Jason sometimes worked when freelance engineering gigs dried up. The owner, Raj, let him use the back room as an office in exchange for fixing the espresso machine whenever it broke down. Jason pushed through the door, the smell of roasted beans wrapping around him like a familiar blanket. The place was already busy, students and freelancers hunched over laptops, their faces bathed in blue light. And then he saw her. Lucy sat at a corner table, his notebook spread open in front of her, surrounded by a chaos of papers, empty coffee cups, and a half-eaten muffin. She wasn't alone. 2 men in their late 20s, one in a rumpled MIT hoodie, the other with a hacker's slouch, leaned over the pages, pointing and murmuring. Jason's pulse spiked. He strode over, his hands curling into fists. "What the hell are you doing with my stuff?" Lucy looked up, her eyes sharp but unsurprised, like she'd been expecting him. "Proving you wrong." The guy in the MIT hoodie, clean-cut but with shadows under his eyes, glanced at Jason, then back at the schematics. "Dude, your base design is solid, but your thermal transfer rate was way off." Lucy recalibrated the... "I don't care what she recalibrated," Jason snapped, snatching the notebook off the table. The pages were covered in new notes, equations he didn't recognize, sketches of components he'd never considered. His stomach lurched. This wasn't just tweaking, this was a full redesign. Lucy leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "You really think the USPTO rejected you because your idea was bad?" She nodded at the notebook. "They rejected you because you built a Ferrari when what the world needs is a bicycle." Jason opened his mouth to argue, but the other guy, the hacker-looking one, cut in. "She's right. Your original design would have cost, what, $2,000 per unit to manufacture." He tapped a finger on Lucy's modified schematic. "This version? Maybe 200, and it's twice as efficient." A cold realization dripped down Jason's spine. He flipped through the pages, scanning Lucy's notes. She hadn't just fixed his mistakes. She'd stripped the design down to its bones and rebuilt it smarter, cheaper, better. He looked at her. "Who are you?" Lucy held his gaze for a long moment. Then, quietly, "I was a grad student. Mechanical engineering. Before my dad got sick and the medical bills ate everything." She shrugged, like it didn't matter, but the tightness in her jaw said otherwise. "Now I'm just good at fixing things that shouldn't work." The MIT guy, Eli, as Jason would later learn, cleared his throat. "We've been helping her prototype this. If these numbers are right, this could actually..." The coffee shop door swung open with a bang. A man in a tailored suit stepped inside, his polished shoes clicking against the worn floorboards. He scanned the room, his gaze landing on Lucy with the precision of a laser sight. "Lucy Mara," he said, smiling like a shark. "I've been looking for you." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Lucy's posture went rigid. The man approached, ignoring Jason and the others, and placed a business card on the table. "Gregory Vaughn, Senior VP, Hydrotech Solutions." "I'll cut to the chase," Vaughn said. "We want to buy your patent." Jason's breath caught. "Her patent?" Vaughn continued. "Smooth as oil. 250,000. Today, all you have to do is sign." For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then Lucy let out a quiet, disbelieving laugh. "You haven't even tested it." Vaughn's smile didn't waver. "We don't need to. We know talent when we see it." His eyes flicked to Jason, dismissive. "And we know when an idea's been improved." The unspoken words hung in the air. We want her version. Not yours. Jason's face burned. This should have been his moment, his design. But Lucy had taken it and turned it into something real, and now a corporate suit was offering her $250,000 for it. And then Lucy did the last thing he expected. She pushed the business card back toward Vaughn. No. Vaughn blinked. Excuse me? I said no. Lucy stood, gathering the papers. This isn't a sale. Vaughn's smile hardened. Miss Mara, be reasonable. What are you going to do with this? You don't have the resources to. I'll figure it out. She looked at Jason, then at Eli and the other guy. We'll figure out. Vaughn studied her for a long moment. Then he straightened his cuffs and turned to leave. Think it over. My offer stands for 48 hours. He paused at the door. After that, well, let's just say patent are complicated things. The door closed behind him. The coffee shop exhaled. Eli whistled low. That guy's going to sue the hell out of you. Lucy didn't answer. She was staring at Jason, her expression unreadable. Jason should have been furious. This was his life's work, and she'd stolen it, reshaped it, nearly sold it. But all he could think about was the way Vaughn had looked at him, like he was already obsolete. Lucy slid the notebook back across the table to him. It's still yours, she said, but it's better now. Jason looked down at the pages, at the future scribbled in ink and coffee stains. Somewhere in the city, a clock was ticking. 48 hours. He had no idea how much would change before it ran out. The courtroom gamble, the law office of Driscoll and Associates, smelled like cheap carpet and stale ambition. Jason sat across from a weary-looking attorney whose suit had seen better days, while Lucy paced the cramped room like a caged animal. Let me get this straight, Attorney Driscoll said, rubbing his temples. You, he pointed at Jason, originally filed this patent. Then you, his finger swung to Lucy, modified the design without his permission and filed a new patent under your own name. Lucy stopped pacing. I improved it. It's a different product now. Driscoll sighed. Legally, that's debatable. But here's the bigger problem. Hydrotech already filed a motion to block both patents, claiming prior art. They're arguing the technology is too similar to something they've been developing internally. Jason's stomach dropped. That's bullshit. They just want to bury us. Driscoll slid a document across the table. A cease and desist from Hydrotech's lawyers. They're also suing Lucy for trade secret theft. Lucy barked out a laugh. I've never stepped foot in their labs. But you did attend MIT, Driscoll said, where Hydrotech funds several research projects. Their argument is that you might have had access to proprietary information. The room spun. Jason had seen this play out before. Big companies crushing small inventors with endless litigation until they either gave up or went bankrupt. We'll fight it, Lucy said, her voice steel. Driscoll shook his head. With what money? Their legal team has more billable hours than we have minutes. A tense silence fell. Outside, rain began tapping against a window, another Chicago storm rolling in. Then Lucy reached into her backpack and pulled out a thumb drive. What if we make this bigger than just us? Jason frowned. What's that? Every calculation, every prototype test, time-stamped and documented. She tossed it on the table. We open source it. Put everything online before the court hearing. Let the world see who really developed this. Driscoll's eyebrows shot up. That's unorthodox. It's a Hail Mary, Lucy admitted. But if we're going down, we do it screaming. Jason stared at her. This was madness. And yet, he remembered the hunger in Vaughn's eyes when he'd made that offer. The way corporations like Hydrotech always won because they counted on people like him to roll over. Do it, he said. The Cook County courthouse was all marble and echoing footsteps. Jason adjusted his borrowed tie. Driscoll had insisted they look professional, while Lucy sat unnaturally still beside him, her fingers white-knuckling the armrests. Across the aisle, Vaughn smirked at them from behind his $2,000 suit. His lawyers looked bored, already victorious. The judge, a no-nonsense woman with silver hair, called the session to order. Before we proceed, she said, adjusting her glasses, I've reviewed the unusual motion from respondents. She held up a printout. This appears to be your entire patent application, including engineering notes, publicly posted on multiple platforms. Vaughn's lawyer jumped up. Your Honor, this is a blatant attempt to... To what? The judge interrupted. Ensure transparency? Because according to these timestamps, Ms. Mara's modifications predate Hydrotech's alleged prior art by 3 months. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Vaughn's smirk vanished. Then came the bombshell. Furthermore, the judge continued. I've received affidavits from 2 MIT professors confirming Ms. Mara's original research was an entirely different field than Hydrotech's alleged trade secrets. She fixed Vaughn with a withering look. This court does not appreciate frivolous claims designed to stifle competition. Jason barely dared to breathe. The judge made her ruling. Joint patent rights to Jason and Lucy, with Hydrotech ordered to pay their legal fees. As they stepped outside into the sunlight, Lucy let out a shaky breath. Holy shit, we won. Jason nodded, dazed. But as he watched Vaughn storm down the courthouse steps, phone pressed angrily to his ear, he knew this wasn't over. Because Hydrotech had unlimited resources, and now they've been publicly humiliated. Some battles end in courtrooms. Others are just the patent and the promise. 6 months after the courtroom victory, Jason stood in a warehouse on the outskirts of Chicago, watching as the first production model of their water purifier rolled off the assembly line. The machine, now sleek and compact, bearing the logo Aquapura, hummed to life with a quiet whir. Lucy stood beside him, her arms crossed, dark circles under her eyes. They hadn't slept much since the trial. Winning the patent was one thing. Actually bringing their invention to life? That had been a war fought in late nights, maxed out credit cards, and endless negotiations with manufacturers. You think it'll work? Jason asked, staring at the machine. Lucy smirked. Only one way to find out. She grabbed a bottle of murky brown water, collected that morning from the Chicago River, and poured it into the purifier's intake tank. The machine chugged for a tense moment before a clear stream flowed from the output spout. Eli, their MIT engineer, who had officially joined the team after the trial, whooped and thrust the glass under the stream. He took a dramatic sip, then grinned. Tastes like water. Clean, actual water. A stunned silence settled over the small team they'd assembled, engineers, designers, and a handful of crowdfunding backers who believed in them when no one else did. Then applause erupted. Jason exhaled, a weight lifting from his chest. It was real. 2 weeks later, the first batch of Aquapura units arrived in Flint, Michigan. Jason and Lucy stood in the community center, surrounded by residents who had spent years battling lead-contaminated water. An elderly woman named Mrs. Wilkins, who had become the face of the local activist movement, held up a glass of freshly purified water with trembling hands. I ain't trusted tap water in 10 years, she whispered. Then she drank. The room erupted in cheers. Back in Chicago, Vaughn watched the news coverage from his corner office, his jaw tight. The ticker at the bottom of the screen read, asterisk, Aquapura goes viral. 14,000 units pre-sold in 48 hours. Asterisk, his assistant cleared her throat. The board wants to know if we're still pursuing legal action. Vaughn turned off the TV. No, he said quietly. We're buying them out. Jason and Lucy sat on the roof of their makeshift headquarters, a repurposed auto garage, passing a bottle of cheap champagne between them. The city lights stretched out before them, endless and glittering. You think Vaughn will actually leave us alone now? Jason asked. Lucy took a swig and laughed. Not a chance. But let him try. She nudged him with her elbow. Still think that sandwich was a bad trade. Jason grinned. Best damn deal I ever made. Want more real-life stories of underdogs who changed the game? Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Your next dose of inspiration is just one click away. And let us know in the comments, what's the one thing you'd fight for no matter the odds?